Welcome everyone. This is a talk about Node.js and Azure App Service equals happy times. I didn't actually know we were building a bot for this event, so I was pretty happy when that emoji came through on the bot. So, go me. Awesome. Cool. So, Node.js and App Service. We're going to have a bit of a deep dive into Azure App Service, specifically web apps, and how to run your Node.js code on that very effectively and very efficiently. A big thing I love is going to be custom deployments. Just going to look at how we can use custom deployments inside of Azure App Service to customize that deployment and use additional task runners like gulp and grunt. And then finally, depending on the definition of cool, I've got a pretty cool few demos lined up. The last one is Azure Functions. We're going to look at Azure Functions as well. And I've written my own CI/CD pipeline using Azure Functions. Wasn't really working very well this morning, so if it doesn't work, I've got a video prepared. So we'll see how that goes. Awesome. So agenda-wise, you have me talking for a bit, then a few demos, me talking, then a few demos. I like doing demos a lot and have very demo-heavy sessions because the best way I learn is through building. So I love just building stuff in Azure and learning a ton of stuff on the way. So who am I? So my name is Michael. I'm working at Microsoft at the moment as a cloud solutions architect. I've been working in IT for over 10 years. Had various roles from system administration, system engineering, technical architecture, and now cloud architecture. Worked for some small companies, medium-sized companies, some big companies, and really worked across different industries like retail, finance, and media. So Node, I was a pretty big Windows guy about 2 years ago, had a lot of PowerShell scripting experience, wanted to really get into a programming language, and I really got attracted to Node.js. There's a few reasons for that. I thought it was a JavaScript runtime, you know, PowerShell scripting, JavaScript's kind of scripting, and it should be easy. Wasn't quite as easy as that, but had a lot of fun along the way. Really intrigued by its asynchronicity, if that's a word, and how it processes asynchronously. And then right at the bottom is my GitHub page. So all the code and all the demos I'm doing today, all the code's up on GitHub. So feel free to go to have a look, fork, clone, make comments. Just don't be too nasty on the pull requests. Cool, awesome. All right, so what's get out of this presentation? If you get nothing out of this presentation, I want you to go away thinking that the Azure App Service platform is very open and very powerful. So we'll go through that as well. When I say open, there's a few different modules we have sitting on top of Azure App Service, which is open source of GitHub, which we'll go through and have a look, where you guys can have a look and see exactly what's happening on the hood. And from a powerful perspective, you can change your Node version, which will do that, change your NPM version as we're installing our software onto the app service, and really the ability to do custom deployments with gulp and grunt and bower and a couple of bits and pieces as well, which we'll look at. And again, Azure App Service is a great place to run your Node code. Always think about that. Yeah, and again, more around custom deployments is a bit of a passion of mine, so we'll go through that and see how you can really make it suit your needs. Awesome. So, Node.js. Who's using Node.js right now? Woo! Awesome. Who's thinking about it? Cool. Awesome. All right. So what Node is, it's really designed to be very scalable and efficient, and that's due to its asynchronous nature. So it's event-driven as well, which is a little bit different to what I'm used to personally. And it's a JavaScript runtime. So if you've got a lot of experience with JavaScript, you should be able to pick it up quite easily. One other thing as well, it's single-threaded, which is a little bit different to other programming languages. So we'll go through that as well and see how Azure handles, specifically in app service, when you scale up or scale out your architecture, how it handles that. Awesome. Now, Azure App Service. Who's using Azure App Service? Yeah. Who's using it with Node? One hand. Awesome. Hopefully we'll have a few more hands in a couple of weeks after you've seen this. But basically, Azure App Service, it's our PaaS platform for running kind of code inside of Azure. Fully managed platform, built-in auto-scaling, load balancing, high availability with auto-patching. There's some pretty cool features, I think. And on the right-hand side as well, this talk is specifically about Node, but you can run multiple different types of programming languages inside of it. So it's not just .NET. You can do Java, PHP, Python, and of course Node. Another one of my favorite features is stage deployments. So we're going to be looking at deployment slots and how we can do stage deployments right at the platform. And there are also some pretty cool features as well, like testing in production and Active Directory integration, which I'm not going to go into too much, but we'll have a quick look at that. Cool. Another graphic, a lot of information here. So Azure App Service has probably got 5 services that kind of come under the umbrella of Azure App Service. I'm going to be focusing on web apps specifically. But we also have mobile apps, API apps, logic apps, and functions. We're going to be talking at functions as well. But it's really cool with the DevOps productivity. As you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff we'll be doing. So I'll be pulling all of my code from GitHub when I'm doing deployments. So we'll look at how we do that. I'll also be doing all of my deployments via Azure ARM templates as well. So we'll look at how to do those and how to deploy those. I'll be doing stage deployments as well. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a whole bunch of CMSs supported to do digital marketing types of sites. Multiple languages supported, and it's really, really great for enterprise workloads. Cool, excellent. So what's currently GA and what's not? So today I'll be going through Azure App Service, the GA version. I'm going to be going through Azure Functions, which is also generally available. That's what I mean when we say GA. And we'll be looking at the Azure App Service preview for Linux. So we'll touch on that a little bit as well, but that's in preview. Just wanted to call that out specifically. Awesome, okay, so we've talked a little bit about Node.js, talked about Azure App Service, and now why they're better together is the next question. So, when you run Azure App Service inside of Azure, there's this another module that we run on top of it called IIS Node. So that's a native IIS module, which allows you to run your Node code. And it's open source. So we can literally go out to GitHub and have a look. So I'm just going to click on the wiki. So basically this is IIS Node. It's available for you guys to go and have a look at. It's what we're running on top of Azure App Service to do some of our higher level Node kind of functionality. So a couple of highlights for me. So if we look at the benefits down here, one of them is this one, scalability and multi-core servers. So as Node is single-threaded, typically when you spin up a Node server, you'll have one Node.exe process running. What the Azure platform will do for you is as you scale up or scale out your infrastructure, it'll add more Node.exe processes for you on the fly. So nothing that's managed there, it'll do it for you. Another cool thing as well is process management. So as it's doing that as well, it's kind of go hand in hand. It'll manage all the processes for you. So as it's scaling up and spinning down Node.exe processes, it'll handle all that for you, which I think is pretty cool. A whole bunch of other features as well, which is pretty cool around access to logs and auto updates and that type of thing. But if you want more information, definitely go there and have a look. Cool, awesome. And the last point there is, if you want to change the default behavior of IIS Node, there is a YAML file you can install with your project to change the behavior of that as well. Awesome. Kudu. Who's heard of Kudu? Awesome. Love Kudu. So Kudu, again, is an open source project we're going to have a look at, and it's really the engine behind source control deployments inside of Azure App Service. And what it really does really, really well is it allows you to do customized deployments as long as a whole bunch of other features as well. So when we spin up a few websites as well, we'll go to the SCM page here as well, have a look at what it's all about. But again, that's in GitHub as well, and you can literally go and have a look on GitHub. Go on the wiki page and see what it's all about. So I like simple explanations for things, and that top line I think sums it up quite well around doing Git deployments inside of Azure websites. Awesome. And again, there's 2 points I raised before, more around the openness of the platform, so all the code's stored on GitHub, so you can definitely go and have a look. Now for the powerful point of view, customized deployments, I think this is the real power of this platform here. Allows you to do a whole bunch of other things, which is a different to normal deployment process. And that's stuff like installing different packages, which we'll have a look. You can use Bower, you can use Gulp, and you can use Grunt to really change the way you're deploying your app inside of Node Azure App Service. And what's really cool as well is you don't have to manage your own CI/CD pipeline kind of servers or tools. You can do some of this really cool stuff just out of the box for you. And again, we're going to look at changing your Node and NPM versions just through code. Awesome. Enough talking. Demo time. So this is the first demo here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to have I'm the dev apparently, use Visual Studio Code. I'm going to push some code up to GitHub, which is fine. I'm going to deploy an Azure website using an Azure template. So fairly simplistic basics first demo, and then we'll build on that and make it more customizable and more complex. So we're going to here is, I'm just going to go grab a command. Cool. Does this look familiar to anybody? Yeah, who's using Windows on Bash, or Bash on Windows? 2 hands, awesome. Cool, excellent. So this is Bash on Windows. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the Preview Azure CLI, which is a Python-based CLI, which can run on Bash on Windows. So I'm just going to paste that command in. So all that's doing is just creating a resource group for me. So whenever you deploy stuff inside of Azure, you deploy it into a resource group. So I'm just going to deploy that into the Australian East region. Cool, that's come back successfully, nice and quick. So if we go into our portal, let's refresh that. We'll see it's there. So if you like demo 1, and then the next command that I'm going to run is actually going to deploy the website without code. So I'll just kick that off and I'll talk through what that command's doing. So just grab that, and is that one? There we go, cool. So basically all I'm doing is I'm telling it which resource group to use, I'm telling it which Azure Resource Manager template to deploy, and passing in a whole bunch of variables. And what that Azure ARM template looks like, again, if we go back into my GitHub page, go to ARM templates. Not going to go through all this, but feel free to go and have a look. But basically the important things is that I'm deploying an app service plan, and I'm deploying an Azure website, and I'm using these source control variables down here to make sure it pulls the right repo and branch. So all our code is going to be deployed automatically. So if we go back here, cool, that's still running. Go to the portal, refresh. I'm a little bit impatient, so I'll have to check how things are going. So as you can see here, the deployment's currently deploying right here. So I'll check on here, and I'll just see how it's going. Cool, so it's created my website, and now what it's doing is it's pulling those files from GitHub. So that shouldn't take too much longer, and we'll have a quick look at what we built. Just while we're doing that, I might just look at the code real quick. Don't judge, hack this together in a hurry. But basically, it's using Node, Express, and EJS just to render a web page. I'm using a lot of environment variables as well. So basically, down here, I'm using a lot of environment variables that come with the platform, just to tell us what kind of region it's in, what SKU I'm using, and that type of thing, which we'll have a look at in a sec. Cool, and that's been deployed. So I'm going to have a look at my website. So when that loads, there's a couple of things I want to highlight. So basically it tells us what GitHub project we've pulled from on the top there. And it gives us, more importantly, our URL. So we're going to have a quick look at that. And basically that's it. So again, these are all environment variables I'm pulling from the platform. So basically the source control management is GitHub. That's the service plan tier I'm using free. There's different plan tiers inside of Azure App Service. And then some other bits and pieces as well. So it's a very simple and quick, easy way you can get a website going up in Azure App Service using GitHub. And we'll go through some more demos and we'll customize that, make it a bit more complex. One thing I wanted to do next is I wanted to create a preview of the Azure App Service on Linux. So if we go into here. So currently that demo was using the GA version of Azure App Service. This one's going to be using the preview of Azure App Service, and that's also show you some of the really cool things you can do. So here's a resource group. I was creating this demo this morning, so I've called it kind of 1.5. We'll sort of a few demos a bit later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an app service plan. And we'll give it a name. Hopefully that's not taken. Yeah. Using my existing resource group. Now see this operating system option here. We can go and select Linux. And then we'll select, because it's still in preview, it's not available in all regions. We'll just go Southeast Asia. We'll leave the pricing tier as standard, and we'll go and create that. So that shouldn't take too long to submit and deploy. So we'll just wait for that to come back. But basically that's the preview. Again, I just want to call out its preview. I just want to show you some of the cool things you can do with it as well. It's not specifically around Node, but there's some really cool features coming out which I just couldn't ignore. Cool, so that's succeeded, so we're going to have a look at that. Cool, so that's my plan. And we're just going to go and add a web app. On Linux. Cool, again, preview, we'll click on that. Go and create. Sometimes does that. Cool, and again, we can select Node here, but I'm going to select that now, and then we'll go and change it in a second. So basically, when you create a... Ooh, that's not very good. All right, not going to troubleshoot it right now. Basically, what I want to show you is when you deploy it through the Azure preview for app service on Linux, you get this container option, and we have some built-in containers that you can deploy, so Node.js with different versions, which is pretty cool. Or you can pull a container directly out of Docker Hub, which is really, really cool. Didn't work, but we'll press on. Which is pretty cool because I think that's pretty easy to run and change the Node.js version pretty quick and easy there, which is awesome. All right, so next demo. Oh, is this one? Cool, so basically just building on top of the first demo, we're going to be doing a very, very similar thing. We're going to do a customized deployment. I'm going to be using Grunt to do some unit tests and security checks and some uglify options. Cool, so I'll just kick that off and then we'll go and have a look at the code. So again, I'm just going to create a new resource group. And we'll go and deploy that. Awesome, cool, okay, so just double check, awesome. Okay, so it's using my Node 23 project, so we'll just go and open that. Cool, so this is where it starts to get a little bit interesting. So when you're doing customized deployments inside of Azure, you can generate these deploy.sh files and the .deployment file. So basically, you drop this .deployment file into your project and you give it this little config that says, instead of doing our regular type of deployment, go see deployment.sh to do a customized deployment. And what that looks like is this. So this is generated for you by the platform. It's a whole bunch of code, but basically the only part that you need to look at is this deployment part here. Cool, so step one is basically what happens out of the box. It's doing a kudu sync from source control. Second one, it's selecting the version. And the next demo will go through how to change the version of Node that you're using and npm. Because the reason I do that is because the platform will update the version of Node as we go along. So if you have a specific Node version you need to use, you can hard code it or define it inside of your project. Here, I'm going to deploy my production packages. I'm going to install them separately to my dev packages, which is the next line. And then I'm going to run some grunt tasks. And we'll go and look at what those do as well. And then finally, once you start doing customized deployments, you can start doing post-deployment commands as well. So what I see them being used for is if you're doing something like chat ops and you're pushing code up to our platform, you can just have webhooks triggered from here to let you know when the deployment's finished. So we'll check and see how that's going. So demo 2. Cool, it's deploying. Cool, okay, that's almost finished. Cool, awesome, that's finished. So again, we're going to get a very similar result in the portal. So we're going to see that our package has been pulled from source control, but it's a different project. And if you click on this link here, it's going to be the exact same web page. But how we've created it's a little bit different, so we're going to have a look at that as well. So, customized deployment. What I'm talking about here is when we go into the continuous deployment options. Cool, so let's pull my stuff from GitHub. And it's got all my Git comments and all that kind of stuff that comes with it, which is really cool. But if we click in here, it's this part that's different. So we go and view this log. So this is doing a customized deployment. So you can go and have a look at exactly what's happened. So I'll make this a bit bigger. But cool. So that first line is it's found my deploy.sh file. And now it's going to start a Node.js deployment. What it's doing is syncing up all my files. We'll scroll down a bit. Cool. So my startup script tells it Node to look for a server-min.js file, which isn't there right now, but it will be there soon. after grunt has run. And as you can see there, all is at the bottom here is a whole bunch of different node versions that are available. So all those kind of node versions are there. You'll probably see the one that you want to use, but there's a whole bunch of ones that's supported out of the box in the platform. When we start going down here, I've hard-coded, and I'll show you in a second, a specific version of Node I want to use, which is 591, and a specific version of NPM I want to use. And I'll tell you how to do that as well. It didn't find an IIS-node.yaml file because I'm configuring things a little bit differently. But if you do have one, it will go and pick that up and start customizing your deployment. And as we scroll down, it's just installing my packages. So I have to install my production packages first. Then it's going to deploy my development packages next. And once that's done, I'll scroll in here a bit. Cool, and it's going to run my grunt tasks. So we'll have a look at that code in a second, but I've got a couple of different processes inside of grunt. So I'm doing a quick unit test, and then I'm doing a security check with NSP. Is anybody using NSP at the moment? No? It's a pretty cool node package you can use just to test your code against kind of some of the most common security vulnerabilities. So we're going to have a quick look at what that looks like in the code. So if we look at my Node.js file, so basically, very, very simple. Who's using grunt here at the moment? Anybody using grunt? No? Anyone using gulp? Yeah, cool, awesome, all right. I'm a bit old school, so I'm using grunt. I know gulp's a little bit newer technology, but basically you can do the exact same thing with grunt or gulp. You can just call your gulp file and run your customized tasks through here. So very quickly, all I'm doing here is just doing a unit test quickly here, doing NSP, and then I'm doing a bit of an uglify just to minimize my server.js code, and I'm renaming it to server.min. And then what I was talking about before around changing your node version, so basically in your package.json file, you can just change the engine versions there. So you have different options around how you change your npm and node version inside of the platform. That's one way. You can also do it through the IIS node.yaml file I was talking about. So you've got two options there. And that's basically how I'm doing things there. And right at the top there, you can see that I'm starting that server-min.js file. So basically, grunt's going and taking my server.js file, minimizing it, creating a new file. That's what spins up when I start my website. Cool, and then we're going to go through straight into another demo. Awesome, okay, so this is a very, very similar deployment, but we're doing a staged deployment. So inside of Azure App Service and web apps, you get this concept of slots. So you can have production slots and staging slots, so you can do a staged deployment. So we're going to look at that next as well. So again, the process is going to be very, very similar to last time, but I'll just kick it off. So again, just going to create a resource group. And then we'll go in and deploy our code. So again, very, very similar usage pattern that I'm using to deploy my stuff. That's come back already, and we'll go and deploy that. And if you've got keen eyes, but I'm using a slightly different ARM template as well, so we're going to have a look at that as well. So where the ARM template differs from this one is that we're going to be setting up slots. So basically, again, we're doing a app service plan. We're doing a web app, but inside of our web app, I've got these staging slots. So I've got slot config names, and I've got a staging slot somewhere. Here we go. So out of the box, you'll get a production slot. I'm also configuring a staging slot. And then inside of my staging slot, that's the slot that's configured to pull from my source control. So I'm not pulling source control straight to production. It's going to staging. Once I make sure everything's okay, we can do some testing on our staging slot. Then I'll flip it with production. So we'll look at that as well. Cool, that's going. Cool, so you can see there I've got an app service plan, and I've got my web app and another additional staging slot. So that's still deploying right now. Let's just have a quick look. Cool, and it's just doing the last task there, which shouldn't take too much time. can see I get quite impatient. That's all going well. Cool, so it's just pulling my stuff from source control. Does anyone tend to look at these logs when they're deploying stuff? Anybody use these quite well? I think they're pretty cool. You can have a look so you can see exactly what's going on. Because sometimes when you're deploying things through ARM templates, you don't get a lot of feedback through the console, also the CLI. So I like to go into the deployments and have a quick look and see what's going on. So it'll tell you exactly what resource is being deployed and what's happening. Now, it didn't take this long this morning. Cool, so now where this demo differs from the last one, I was doing a stage deployment. So we look at our production code. So this is our production web app. We look at this URL when it comes up. You'll see there's no Git project over here. We'll look at this. So when you create an Azure web app, you get a default page that comes out of the box, and this is it. So you can see that's not my code, that's not my custom app, that's just what comes out of the box. So that's been configured, and that's what we're expecting. But then when we look at the staging slot, down here, this is going to have that customized same web app that we've been using. And again, you can see that's pulling from my GitHub. So I'll open that up. Cool. So you can see that's our web app here. It's pulling from GitHub. What's here is it's using the staging slot as well. So again, I'm using an environment variable there to tell us what staging slot it's at. So that's kind of done a staged deployment. So that's not our live site. You can see here it's got dash staging. So that's not our production URL. This one is. So you can deploy your code to a staging slot, so it's not affecting production. And then once you're done that, and you want to say, oh, that looks pretty good, and you want to swap it with production. So it's going to do what we call a VIP swap. So this will be a DNS swap, so it's not redeploying my code, it's going to swap the DNSs from our staging and production. So just run this command here. So what that's doing is it's telling my web app to swap the production slot and the staging slot and do a switch. Which isn't going to take too long, hopefully. So is anyone using staging slots at the moment and deploying to staging before doing production in web apps? Same hand? Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So like I was saying before, different tiers inside of AppVerse give you different features, and if you want to use staging deployment slots, you need to use standard or above. Cool. So I'll just wait for that to go through. Much faster this morning. Cool, awesome, so that's done. So now, when we go back to here, so you see that's staging. So if we hit refresh there, that's now the website that was deployed to production. And if we go to our production URL, that's what was deployed to staging. But as you can see here, there's no source management control on that website because it's going through to our staging environment, and also the slot name is production. So that's how you kind of do a staged deployment with Node.js and Azure App Service. Cool, awesome. Now, there's been a lot about Azure Functions this week. Who's been learning about Azure Functions? Awesome. Who's going to go and use them when they get back to their office? Hey, awesome. It's really cool. I really, really love it. I think it's one of the awesomest features we've released for a while now. So again, same kind of slide I showed before. There's 5 kind of products underneath the App Service family. This one we're talking about functions. So it differs to the other ones a little bit because it's event-driven. You can kind of trigger it in different ways. You can bind to services not only in Azure, but also third-party services. and it's got other cool bunch of packages, management and stuff as well, which we'll go through. We're here, and then there's more languages supported. So you can see F# there and a whole bunch of other stuff like bash and batch. Cool, so anyone been learning about, has anyone been to a Azure Functions session this week? Yeah, cool, kind of know what it's about. Cool, awesome. So, functions with JavaScript. So, whereas before we could change the version of Node we're using, when using Azure Functions, it's locked to a specific version. So, it's locked to 6.5.0, and you cannot change that. What you can do is that you can install additional packages via npm, and I'll have a look at that as well. And then you're going to export all your functions as a single function called module.export, so we'll have a look at that as well. But kind of the basic makeup of a function is you have a trigger, and you have inputs, and you have outputs. And we'll go and have a look at that as well. Cool, awesome, okay. Now, I know there's a lot going on the screen here, but I've attempted to create my own CI/CD pipeline using Azure Functions. So basically what's going to happen is I'm a dev on the left-hand side, supposedly, and I'm going to write some code in Visual Studio Code. I'm going to go and push it up to GitHub. And once it goes up to GitHub, GitHub is then going to fire a webhook to one of my first Azure function called source. It's going to then send me a notification via Microsoft Teams. Once it's done that, it's then going to send a message to a queue, and it's also going to write some stuff to Azure Table Storage, which is then going to be picked up by my build function. That build function is then going to deploy the same kind of infrastructure we had before. So we're going to have an app service plan, a web app with a staging slot. Again, send me a notification, send some stuff to Azure Table Storage, send another message to a queue. It's then going to go to my test function. My test function is then going to do some automated end-to-end testing on the staging slot. Unfortunately, I can't kind of stop the pipeline there because I'd like to stop it there and have a quick look and see what's going on, but I haven't written in a very elegant solution. And once that's kind of all done and all going through cool, it's then going to send another message to a queue to my deploy function, which is then going to do a vip swap, what we saw before. Cool. All right, so this didn't work this morning, so let's see how we go. If not, I've got a video on how it works. So let's go to my code. So let's go back to 22. And then I just do change my README file, just so it kind of triggers a push to GitHub, so look at that. Let's just pretend I've made an awesome new cool feature for my website. Let's just go ignite demo. I can't spell anything. Cool, so inside of Visual Studio Code, it's got really great integration with Git, so I'm going to be able to push it all up to GitHub right in the same console I'm using the code. So we'll have a look here. So README file's changed. Also changed my grunt file this morning, so I might just send that up as well. Cool, so I'm staging those changes. I'm just going to make a commit message. So we'll just commit those changes. And then I'm going to push that up to GitHub. Cool, and I'll just wait for that to finish. Cool, awesome, okay. So if we go out to my GitHub page, go here, and project 22. You'll see the last commit was 25 seconds ago with that same comment. And what it's going to do is, if you go to settings here, I've configured a webhook inside of GitHub. So it's going to send a webhook to my cus pipe. That triangle doesn't look so good. Basically, it's going to set a webhook to that URL, which is going to trigger off that first function. So let's just see if that's happened already. No, it hasn't. Cool, so that's just a resource group. This is my functions app. Inside of my functions app, I'm going to have 4 functions. Cool, I've got 2 versions of that, but basically they're my 4 functions. So that's my source function, that's my build function, that's my test function, that's my deploy function. So if you just click here, I just want to see if that's come through or not. So anyone play around with functions before or deployed them? Nope, that's cool. So basically inside of functions, it's got some really cool things around monitoring, so I can see that, awesome, cool. So before I was saying that GitHub was saying it didn't deploy that webhook very nicely, but I come back to my function and I can see that it did process something a minute ago. Which means we should be getting a notification to Microsoft Teams, which we have not, which is fine. So what I might do is, I might play my video that I recorded of this morning. So basically we've done all that, we've talked through that, we've done our change. Yeah, it was green then, which is fine. Cool, awesome. Okay, we'll look at the code as well. So you can see here, that's our first function, went through successfully. I'll just pause it there for a second. So that went through okay. Okay. Cool, there we go, finally, cool, okay. So that first function did trigger, and it sent me through a notification saying build triggered. So that first function gets a notification from GitHub, pulls the code down, sends me a notification, and then puts a message off to a queue for the next function to trigger. So we'll just have a quick look at that function code if you like. So this is the first function here. Cool. So basically this is it. It's basically do a whole bunch of pieces. But I was saying before, and if you go on the integrate tab, so you can see it's receiving a webhook from GitHub. It's then going to get an import from Azure Table Storage, which we'll have a look as well. And then for outputs, I've got writing to table storage and sending a message to a queue. So basically what I'm trying to do is use Azure Table Storage to kind of manage the state of my pipeline. And I'll show what it looks like. I should have opened this before. While that's opening, we'll just make sure it's progressing through. So that's still running. Cool, so build started. So what it's doing is it's using that same thing, the Azure ARM template, and it's deploying the same kind of infrastructure inside of Azure that we were doing before. So if we go to the portal, we should see a new resource group called Demo4. Oh no, it's called that, sorry, not Demo4. So basically, I was trying to write it to do multi-branch deployments, but I ran out of time. So it's pulling from the master branch, so it's just got a random 4 digits plus the project name plus master, which is the branch. And you can see it's deploying the same kind of infrastructure there. And again, we should be getting all notifications around that. But if we go back to here, did I open up? Cool, awesome, okay. Now, who's used Azure Storage Explorer before? Yeah? Hey, you can't zoom in, that's all right, we'll do that bit. I really find this tool very, very useful, especially for table storage, because I'm a very visual guy, so it's good to help me visualize what's going on in table storage. So basically, I'm trying to use table storage here to kind of manage the kind of state of my pipeline. So if we go down here, and we go into there, cool, so that's my project name. I've just got a new role, it's the branch, and this is the top line is really the pipeline that we're deploying right now. And you can see here, I've got a whole bunch of information as well around how that is going, but just to prove it is the same one, that's the same message that we had before, and we can check commit IDs if you want as well. That's what's running right now inside of Azure. Cool, awesome. All right, so our build completed, so it only took 2 minutes to go through, and now the tests have started. I've got a test, because it's a demo. Normally you'd have a whole bunch of more intense testing, which is why you can see the test completed came through before the test started. As you know, because Node.js and JavaScript is asynchronous, so it came through out of order, unfortunately. But if we go back to refresh that, scroll across here. So you can see I've got this kind of status column as well. So I'm kind of trying to manage the status of the pipeline. So deploy started. So what it's doing is doing that VIP swap as well for us. And that's the build name. That's the deploy start, deploy end. I was going to time as well how long it takes as well, which is cool fun. So what's happening right now is it's doing that VIP swap. So I'll have a quick look at how that's going. Cool, so go to here. And you can see these little 3 lines means that that function's running. And we'll see if we can catch this in time, actually. So when I run my pipelines, I prefer for it to pause when I deploy to staging, so I can just make sure everything's okay before I promote to production. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to write it in Azure Functions. But if we go to our production, let's see it's already switched already. So if we go back to our staging slot, which you can do by doing that. That should be the same. So that's very, very similar to the kind of demo we did before, demo 3, but it's all automated with Azure Functions and messages and kind of table storage as well. So if we look at the code of my functions, we'll have a look at that real quick. Just some pretty standard stuff there. These are those bindings I was talking about. So I'm writing out to a table storage and sending a message to a queue, which is all that kind of stuff there. But what I think is really interesting is when I was saying that you can install different NPM packages as part of the platform. So the way you typically do that is you go to that SCM page. So if we go down to here, and then we go to Kudu. So this is the URL I was talking about before. So when you deploy something to Azure App Service or to Azure Functions, you get Kudu, and Kudu also has a console as well you can go to. So basically what I'll do here is if you just go down here, so this is the debug console. So if we go to site, root, as you can see, these are all my functions that we have before. So because it's the same Azure Functions app, I've got all my sub-functions kind of in different folders. And then what you can do in here is if you go to just one I have here, let me do a let's see, you can see I've got that function.js, we'll have a look at it in a second. So if you want to define those triggers, inputs and outputs via code, you can do it via that function.js file. But you can see I've got an npm modules folder there. Sorry, node modules folder. Thanks. So basically these extra modules I installed. So basically you can literally go into this console, go npm install all the modules you want. You can also upload a package.json file and just do an npm install. And you can get all the kind of packages you want. And I use quite a bit as well because I couldn't find a nice way to send webhooks out of Azure Functions. So I'm using the request kind of package to send those out as well. Which is cool. Awesome. And that is it. So I've kind of left a lot of time for questions. I threw that pretty fast, but I really like the interaction of questions. So any questions? Yes, sir. Pardon? Yes, everything except for the functions, which I'll be uploading the next couple of days. Okay. But all the web app and the ARM templates and how I'm deploying stuff is all up there. Yeah, of course, absolutely. So it's that one right there. You can go and have a look at that and go and look at all the code and improve it because it's not great so far. Run it in a hurry, but yeah, feel free to have a look, clone, fork it, do a pull request. Cool. Yes, sir. Watch it.
How was IIS not deployed to the app service?
Yeah, so it's part of the platform for you. So you don't have to do anything. It's just there for you. And then what you can do is use that IIS node.yaml file to kind of change how it behaves. But it's part of the platform for you. Cool. Yes, sir, at the back. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So you can customize that however you like. So you can write some pretty cool logic inside of there to say, yeah, if it's trying to deploy from GitHub, go somewhere else and pull a package from maybe somewhere else, maybe blob storage or something. Would be pretty cool. Yes, sir.
Integration with App Insights, do you get that for free? Like you would if you're deploying
I'm not quite sure on pricing on App Insights, but you can definitely use App Insights to track performance monitoring on a Node.js app in App Service. I'm not quite sure on the pricing, but I can find out for you if you like. Cool. Yes, sir.
Okay. So for your unit testing,
Yep.
do you use something like Appfire via GitHub for that, or do you do it in space, like in your staging server?
Yeah. So for unit testing, I was as part of the platform when it's running a customized install, when it's running Grunt, I'm just using stuff like Mocha to do a unit test inside of App Service.
Rather than doing it on GitHub,
Yeah.
something like Appfire.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's all part of the platform, so I don't have to spin up any additional infrastructural servers to do that. So you can really make that platform do more for you for no extra charge. Cool. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you use Visual Studio Online to do that whole deployment pipeline?
Yeah. So Visual Studio Online. So if we go into my function and we go to one of these, is that one? Cool. So this is Visual Studio Online. Is that what you're using? Or using like Visual Studio Team Services? Team Services. Yeah, sorry, I'm not quite the best person for Visual Studio Team Services, but we can find the right guy and let you know. I tend to use open source products. Yeah, cool. But also you can modify your code through there as well if you wanted to. Any other questions? Nope. Cool, excellent. All right, guys, well, thanks for coming, and I hope it was good.